Good evening and welcome to the Lapidary channel. Tonight I want to talk to you about a simple concept that everyone that slabs at some point or another is either going to have to buy or make on their own. And I'm all about making things on my own rather than, give the companies any more money if we can do it ourselves, and it's highly beneficial to us. And what we're doing tonight here is we're actually making a set of wooden jaws for our slab saw for the 26 inch here. The wooden jaws would be similar to these little guys that you see right in here that are below the metal jaws. And the purpose of those jaws is to help hold onto the rock. If you have metal against metal, for one, you can crack the rock. For two, you don't get as good of a hold as you do with wood, because wood will give, metal will not. Metal will bend, but it won't give. And it's highly beneficial to have a set of wooden jaws on your saw, of course, so it'll hold the rock properly. What I've been doing now, when I got this saw here, it didn't have any type of wooden jaws to it or what. And what I've been using actually is not the proper thing, but it's basically little pieces of shim wood. You can see these are overly used. That something similar that you would do or that you would use when you're putting in like a window frame or whatever. And they work, they'll get you by, but they're not ideal. In all honesty, they're a pain in the you-know-what. So what I did tonight was I actually removed the top plate here, which fit over top of these, the guide rods here to clamp the rock, and cleaned it up, got the oil off it or whatever, and I have a simple sheet of plywood over here. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna take this used piece of plywood I used for various other little lapidary projects. It's a let's see, this would be about it'd be about 3/8 inch. Just simple plywood. You can get it at Home Depot or Lowe's or your local lumber mill. And what we're gonna do is we're actually gonna take this and we're gonna cut a set of wooden jaws out from it. So if I can angle my camera better there we go. So first thing we're gonna do is I made sure that this is a 90-degree angle. So because this, of course, is a 90-degree angle. So you want to make sure everything's squared up. So what I'm doing is I'm actually using this as a template for my wooden jaws. So what we're going to do is, let's see here. There we go. I'm going to lay this in here. We're going to cheat and do it the easy way. And if you're asking, how do you know if you have a perfect 90? Just use a simple carpenter square. That's your tell-all. For your whatever wood that you're making it out of. I wouldn't advise using like a 2x4 or something like that. I'd really go with plywood. For the simple fact that when you start using 2x4s or whatever, 2x4 is actually 1 3/4 inches thick. So it's going to cut down on the amount of clamping that you're going to be able to do because of the thickness and the material. So a plywood, 3/4, 1/2 inch, 3/8, or whatever will work just fine for the job, and you'll get a lot of life out of it. And what we're going to do is we're just going to simply go in, make sure we're lined up perfectly. And we're going to trace a line around. Okay, now we got that traced. Now you don't want to move it. Next thing we got to do is we got to get our hole locations. That's extremely important. So to get our hole locations is a simple little number 2 pencil, as they would call it. And we're just going to come in And we're going to go right around the outside edge. While you're holding down on the top of your metal. Then we're going to do number 2. And voila. So there you have it. There's essentially, we used our top metal piece at the top of our clamp, and we made an exact copy of it out of just some used old plywood. It doesn't matter that that hole's a little oblong, not a big deal. So is this one, not a big deal. As long as our center hole is dead on, we're okay. So next what we're going to do is we're going to cut it out. Now normally I would just cut this on a table saw, or you know, a circular saw, or even a jigsaw. But I realize that some of you at home don't have those tools, so we're going to go old-fashioned. We're actually going to use good old-fashioned handsaw. So do it the old way, the easy way. Well, not necessarily the easy way, but we'll do it the old way. So let me start cutting here, and I'll get back with you guys. Okay, and we have our first cut done. Only took about, I don't know, a minute, maybe less. So next we're going to do the other cut here, coming up. Okay, what I did here was actually just cut that little block off. And the reason I did it is simply because of the way my workbench is lined up. So it'll make a lot more sense to be able to cut just straight down here rather than try to flip the board around and monkey around with it. And it's just the way everything's set up down here that it'll make it a lot easier. So next we're going to cut this other line down and cut it out. And we're about halfway through, so a little bit to go, and we'll have this cut off. So right back at you. I wanted to stop here and show you guys a little trick. I'm sure those of you that have used a good old-fashioned handsaw have experienced that sometimes when you're going to cut your line or cutting off whatever you're doing, that the saw tends to bind. An old trick is people used to, back in the day, they used to use grease and different things, and today we're going to use good old WD-40. Water displacement 40 actually is what WD-40 stands for. But anyways, it's a wonderful lubricant. So what we're going to do is we're going to spray a little bit of it right on our blade. It doesn't matter really if we get any on the wood. And what that's going to help to do is it's going to help to cut down on the resistance that's building up between this crack or this cut line and our blade. And it'll make for a smoother cut and a lot less headaches and a lot less four-letter words. So, all right, here we go. All right, well, hey, that cut down on the time, I would say probably in half, at least half, just by putting a little bit of good old WD-40 on the blade, just adding a little bit of lubricant. And now as you see, one little rule of thumb here is you can always take more material off, but you can't put it back on. And as you can see, because of course I'm hand cutting, the blade veered off, and see how it's crooked there? It's nice and straight, and it starts to veer off. So what we're going to do is we're going to use a simple little belt sander that we got. You can try to actually trim this off with something like a coping saw. Would work well. Or a host of little tools there. I wouldn't use anything like a Dremel, or anything like that. But, a simple little belt sander. And you can take it down. Really, by all rights, this actually does not matter. I'm a perfectionist, so of course I gotta have it right. But you know, having a little bit more on the side is just gonna add a little bit more gripping power to your piece. But that's up to you. So I'm gonna trim this off on the belt sander. I shouldn't say trim it, but I'm gonna sand it off and just kind of scrap these little doodads up top here and just kind of shape it in a little bit and go from there. Okay, and we're back. Now what I done was I simply took a small little belt sander, a little tabletop belt sander, and I just made a chamfer. Now if you want to know what chamfer is, basically like a little bevel going around to basically deburr the you know, the piece of wood and to straighten it up, square it up, and did it on front and the back, and sand it down the sides and such, so everything's nice and smooth. And the reason I did that is when obviously when you're, you know, your slab material and you're going back and forth, you don't want to grab onto the side of the, you know, the side of the vise or the side of the jaws and, you know, get a, you know, a nasty splinter in your finger. So it's just a little, you know, just a little bit extra little trickery there. And next what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go down and hand sand that down a little bit, and with just some regular like 150 grit sandpaper, and then drill our holes. Alright, so we got ourselves a little sheet. This is actually 60 grit, and we're just going to cut out a little square here, just enough to do the job. And now we don't want to sand over top of our hole locations, otherwise we're going to have to remark them again. But just get off any other little burrs and little splinters into the back if you want. There's some junk on the back. Doesn't really matter. Like I said, the only purpose of this is to hold your rock in your vise and protect the rock and protect your saw so the rock doesn't come loose. So there we go. All right, now next we're going to drill these two holes. Now, one thing I wanted to mention before I got started was take a simple set of calipers, or if you don't have a calipers, you can always use a 6-inch ruler if you have one, and just measure the size of your hole here, which is 3/4 of an inch. Now, if you try to drill just a straight 3/4 of an inch hole all the way through here, you can run into some problems. Your drill bit can walk, which means that it'll veer off on a bigger drill bit, or it can blow out the back a lot easier. So what I tend to do is, given that this is a 3/4 inch through hole that we're gonna make, is I'm gonna drill a smaller drill bit, probably something in the neighborhood of like a 3/8 inch drill. And I'll drill those hole locations first, so I know that I have them, the hole locality or hole locations on, and then I'll go to the 3/4 inch bit. Okay, and what I've done now is I've drilled a smaller hole, essentially like a little pilot hole through there, and next we're gonna step it up to the larger hole, and then we're finished. It's a very simple thing to do. In time, these always wear out. Depending on how much cutting you're doing, depends on how fast they're gonna wear out. But this is something very simple that any homeowner, any lapidarist, any hobbyist can do on their own. Man, woman, it doesn't matter. I'm a girl, and I'm doing it on my own, and so can you. It's very, very easy. It's don't be intimidated by it and think that you have to order it off the big manufacturers. That's what they want you to do, because of course they want your money. So a simple little piece of plywood. Now you're asking, you say, oh, I don't want to buy a whole sheet of plywood. At Lowe's and Home Depot, I know Home Depot for sure. I don't tend to shop Lowe's too much. But I know in Home Depot for sure, I know they sell partial pieces of plywood that you can get for a couple bucks. Or you can always look, they have like defect piles, and you might be able to find a piece that, you know, of course, that would be big enough. And, you know, you can make it out of that for just a few dollars. I mean, I would wager to say this probably cost me maybe, I don't know, $2 to make. And total time so far is about, oh, maybe 20 minutes. By the time I had taken the top metal plate off and I traced it out, cut it out, sanded it, and then drilled my location holes. And probably another 5 minutes, not even that, another 2 minutes to drill our final holes through it. So we'll be right back. Okay, we're back, and that took about a whole, I don't know, minute. So we have our final piece, our wooden jaw, or soft jaw, as they would call it. And now we're going to fit it up to the saw and see how it goes. You might get a little bit of splintering coming out the back. If you drill the smaller hole first, the location hole, it'll help minimize that to some degree. What you always could do is you can always drill part way through, flip your workpiece around after you have your location hole drilled, and then drill the other way through, and that'll totally prevent any little edge chipping. But I mean, you have to realize at the end of the day, this is a soft jaw for a slab saw. I mean, it doesn't, you know, it doesn't have to look pretty, because in about 20 slabs, it's not going to look pretty anyways. So, but just given being a perfectionist, we're going to just deburr this just a little bit here. Help keep our oil clean. Now, typically, what I would do is I would use a slightly larger drill bit on top of this, and I would just countersink it. And what I mean by countersinking is I would just go in maybe about maybe an eighth of an inch, if that. And what that would do is that would add a bevel, or as it's called, a chamfer, around the edge. And but really no need here for what we're doing. So we're going to take these two, and there you have it, right next to one another. That one's off a little bit. And I'm going to take them over to the slab saw and get it set up. Now, I still have to make a duplicate for the bottom, but I wanted to make at least one of these here in the video and try to cut down the video time here. And basically, you're just being repetitive, and you're doing the same thing for the bottom. So let's see how they fit. Okay. Let's see here. I'm going to adjust my camera here a little bit. Even though it doesn't look it, that's a beautiful piece of lilac Turkish jade. There you go. There you can see some color in it. It's just dirty, so it needs to be cleaned up. But we'll just set this guy off to the side. Now we get to get rid of this thing. Thank the good Lord. Right in the trash. So first, we're going to see if our top jaw, if it fits, and it does. There you have it. Slides up nice and freely. And then we'll put our metal jaw right on top. And there you have, folks. Now, just for demonstration purposes, I'm going to clamp this one down, just using the little bottom shim, because I didn't make a bottom jaw yet. And I already know what orientation I want to cut this. So, and one of the reasons I did this video, of course, is because obviously it's something that every cutter is going to have to do or have to replace in time. But moreover is over here, and is beautiful, absolutely beautiful Turkish jade here. And the colors do not do it justice on the video here. And I clamped the piece down last night using just the metal jaw with the thinner shims, and it actually cracked it in half. Now, of course, you know, this is extremely hard material, so it probably had a fracture in it. But, you know, using metal against metal, you know, against stone, sure as heck isn't gonna help. So there we have it. And what we'll do is we'll just put our fender washers back on. And we will position our stone accordingly. This one we're only gonna, there we go. And we'll put our nuts back on, and we are ready to go. Once these guys are tightened down, we're gonna be in business. Minus the fact, of course, like I said, that we need to build a bottom jaw for it. Wood against wood, stone, and wood. The wood's gonna give. So metal, stone, metal. Well, depending on the material, you might have some problems. And one of the problems that you can actually have can be a very serious problem. Is if this rock slips out of here, and I went through this with the instruction video of how to use a slab saw in part 1, I believe, or part 2. Oh, excuse me. Is if this rock comes out of here, and you know, in mid-cycle going through, you're gonna have a problem. You're gonna lose a blade. And those of you that have, you know, 26-inch blades or 18-inch blades or any blades for that fact, know how incredibly expensive they are. So it's really vitally important to make sure that whatever we're clamping down to cut is clamped down properly. The tighter, the better. So now, of course, if you're clamping down fluorite or something soft, of course, you don't want to, you know, crank it down to the point where you're gonna, you know, you're gonna blow the stone in half. But having a wooden jaw allows you to clamp it down a little bit, well, actually a lot tighter, without doing that. So, but then there we go. And there's our set of wooden jaws. It took a total time of, I don't know, we'll just say 20, 25 minutes. Cost a couple bucks. I hope you enjoy, and thank you for watching the Lapidary channel. Please click subscribe and like this video and the buttons below. It'd be much appreciated. If you have any questions, please feel free to post them in the comment section below. I thank you very much, and you guys have a wonderful evening.